in Libya. My timing couldn't have been better to meet my next guest. Sarwar Kashmeri knows everything about that region, and we had an incredible discussion when we met at a Foreign Policy Association event,
yes,
where you spoke and where we had the pleasure and privilege, Sarwar, of being with the general who happens to run West Point.
Indeed.
It was a pleasure to meet him, General Huntoon, and also to have the chance to talk to you about NATO. Because at the time, many people were asking me, well, NATO is really the one charged with protecting citizens after the UN resolution came down about Libya, 1973. But isn't NATO really us, the U.S.? And the question you raised with me was, well, should NATO exist, changed, or as your book says, and if we could put it up, I really think everyone should read this, NATO 2.0, Reboot or Delete. First of all, I love the title because it just gets right to the point, and we're all living in this computer age. And the way you lay out your theory on this is so easy for people who don't even follow this to understand. So thank you for doing that. What do you think about NATO?
Well, I think NATO is one of those organizations that's always kept the wider transatlantic relationship together. And most people forget how important this is. You know, it's a $4 trillion relationship, 14 million people work for Europe and America and each other's companies, and NATO, which used to help keep it together, is now chipping away at it. So from that respect, and from the respect that we still will at some point need to have the Europeans, Americans, Canadians work together, I think it needs to be recalibrated. And the point that you mentioned is all the other entities, the World Trade Organization and so on, G8 became the G20, this hasn't been recalibrated since the Second World War, and that's the point I make in this book.
It's a very long time. Why not?
Well, I think part of the reason is, if I may say so, that we've never been really very certain whether we want to give up control. That we are NATO, as you so rightly observed. And I'm not certain we fully come to grips with giving up the control. But more importantly, I think we have not focused on the fact that the Europeans have been building their own defense establishment, and it is becoming more and more capable.
So might they pull out?
Well, I don't think that they will pull out, because I think NATO still has the brand name, and it's still, by the large part of Europeans, is regarded as the defense shield of last resort. But it is dysfunctional, it is misfiring, and it behooves us. So I'll give away the mystery for my future readers by saying I don't say delete, I say reboot.
Yes, well, that's good, because a lot of people feel there is some benefit still to the NATO alliance.
Indeed.
And the work that they do. How are they doing in Libya?
Well, they're doing okay. I wouldn't go any more than okay, because as you know, NATO is 28 countries. Only 6 of them have decided that they're going to be active in Libya. And then it just takes them a long time to do things. As an example, when the rebels call for help, the help call goes, the 911 goes from the ground in Libya to Naples, where the joint headquarters is. From there it goes to Brussels, to the military committee. From there it goes to the North Atlantic Council, which is the board of directors. And if it is a very sensitive topic, it goes to the capitals of the 28 countries and then comes back.
So it's war by committee. I mean, the question is, can you really have a war by committee? Right?
Exactly so. And in fast-moving areas, as we deal in now, and that hasn't changed since Mr. Clark's days in Europe. He used to complain about that European. And if I might add, that's the reason we didn't use NATO after 9/11. You know, NATO declared this Article 5, which says an attack on one is an attack on all. But we said, no, wait a minute. This is a real war. We'll call you when we need you. And this was part of the reason.
In Iraq and Afghanistan, we have learned in America some of the frustrations of unilateralism, right? That we bear all the burden, we do all the bleeding and all the paying, and take all the price. Perhaps in Libya and maybe elsewhere, we are learning some of the frustrations of multilateralism. But each of those approaches does have advantages, and among the advantages of the second one is that we can put some of the burden on other people. Don't we want to do that?
Absolutely, we want to do that, and that's the reason that I would like to see NATO made much more effective. But you make an excellent point. I mean, this whole Bin Laden episode of the last few days shows the power of collaboration.